Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. What will Jericho Sims' role be this upcoming season? Who will the backup point guard be for the Knicks? Will Tibbs decrease or increase the rotation? And much more in a very special first mailbag episode of this month right now.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief and Knicks site The Strickland, as you can find at thestrick.land. And I'm taking some of your mailbag questions today. Gavin and I were hoping to do this together, but he's feeling a little under the weather. Unfortunately, we have had back-to-back weeks where each of us caught COVID. So hope Gavin's starting to feel better. But I'm picking up the slack for today. So, if you wanted to hear both of our opinion, well, tough cookies. You're going to just hear mine, unfortunately. So let's get into a few questions here. First question comes from, wow, I love the sound of this, $100 million coupon code at Blood of Depanta. Wants to know, on Twitter, over under Jericho Sims minutes total 600. So interesting. This episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Let me go over the odds. I'm just kidding. I don't know how it set the odds on this because it seems nearly impossible. So Jericho Sims so far in his career, I looked it up. I figured this would be valuable context. 555 minutes as a rookie, 812 minutes as a sophomore, 585 minutes this past season. So that's his totals thus far in his career. So 2 seasons under 600, but not by much, only by 45 minutes and 15 minutes this past season. So does not seem totally crazy to think that he could be over 600 minutes. And in fact, that is where I'm going to come in with this. I think it has less to do with Sims and more to do with the fact that I only see the Knicks bringing in one more center one way or another. So whether that's making a trade for someone like, obviously Walker Kessler's name has been thrown around. Nick Richards' name has been thrown around. Some bigger names like Karl Anthony Towns have been thrown around. So maybe the Knicks look to go one of those various routes. Maybe they just re-sign Precious Achiuwa and roll with that. Either way, I think that, Jericho Sims probably gets some minutes this season sporadically because, whether it's Mitchell Robinson or whether it's someone else they bring in, the center position is kind of just one of those where you can bank on some injuries throughout the year. The human body is not really meant to be like 7 feet tall. And so these guys, a little more so than most are prone to, picking up an ankle injury, a knee injury, a hip injury, whatever throughout the season. And you see it with the center position, the guy that the Knicks just had to let go. And Isaiah Hartenstein had, chronic injury issues last year, largely just, I think, related to being big and playing too many minutes, for his frame. And then Mitchell Robinson seems to always have something going on. I just think that, Sims will just get an opportunity here and there just based off the fact that he'll be the third string center. Like, unless they look to replace him, or unless, like, you bring on Skapintsev and, he's on a 2-way deal or something, and then he's able to play his way into Sims's spot. And then, I would imagine that what would happen then would be the Knicks would probably cut Sims and, move Skapintsev up to a full NBA contract, because I don't really know what the 2-way rules are as far as like minutes allowed this year or games allowed. They used to be more strict with that. And then during COVID, they kind of scaled all that stuff back with how much guys are allowed to play on 2-way deals. And they kind of just were like, well, whatever, we'll just leave it. So I don't know if they've re-implemented some of those rules again now that, things have normalized post-COVID. Either way, I think that I don't necessarily see the Knicks doing anything too drastic or making a move where they would move up as Kapintsev or something like that to take Jericho Sims' roster spot. I think they like Sims. I'm a little out on him, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not, like, I don't want to say he's not an NBA player. I think there's some utility for him, but I just don't. I don't see him doing positive things on a team that's trying to contend. Um, but that said, the Knicks seem to like him. Tibbs seems to like him. He ironically plays sort of a different style. Like I think he would be better on a team that switches a lot, and the Knicks just don't really do that. And I don't think that he's a great like rim protector, like a pure rim protector. So it's difficult for me to really be like, yeah, I'm all about it, but it is what it is. I think that if he's on the team, that he's going to get some minutes just due to the fact that some injuries will happen. Mitch, unfortunately, sometimes it's freak injuries, sometimes it's lower body injuries, whatever, but he just seems to always, without fail, get some form of injury that's going to keep him out for 20, 30 games any given season. And, I think that will just open up that space for Jericho Sims to slot in and pick up some backup minutes and get over that 600-minute hump, which he's, again, only narrowly missed 2 out of 3 seasons in his career, and he pretty soundly beat it his second season. So I think that is the situation there. And now let's move to another battle here. So Jordan Bubb at Bub Jordan, our good buddy, wants to know, who do you think the backup point guard will be? And Gavin and I have gone over this a little bit recently, but I'll relitigate a little bit again. I'm kind of leaning towards, I mean, I guess it just depends on how the Knicks want to approach the bench unit, right? Like if they're going to approach it as sort of a backcourt by committee, I think there's a decent chance that Deuce McBride is your quote backup point guard. I think Jalen Brunson is going to probably play like, I don't know, 34 to 36 minutes a game, something like that. And that only means that you need to fill about 12 minutes with, non Jalen minutes. And then if you start thinking about it, like there's a decent chance that, and the Knicks did this, Tibbs did this for part of last season. There's a decent chance like Julius Randle becomes the guy that stays out there with the bench through the whole first quarter and then into the second quarter a little bit before he takes a little breather to then come back in and close out the quarter. If that's the case, like you don't necessarily need a quote point guard, a guy that's going to bring down the ball, set up the offense, run pick and rolls, all standard point guard stuff, because you might just kind of run the offense through Julius and wait for him to draw doubles and then kick it out to shooters or cutters, or whatever the case. And, just roll with that with Deuce McBride and Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart out there. Precious Achua, I guess, off the bench. I think that there's decent chance that that's how the Knicks approach things. So in that respect, maybe it's just Deuce McBride who just comes in, as the quote point guard, comes in for 12 minutes a game, and then maybe snakes a couple minutes with Jalen Brunson here and there as the shooting guard, and then he's just sort of your backup point guard. Maybe there's a chance that Tyler Kolek comes in. I think if we're framing this as, well, Deuce is the backup shooting guard, Dante's the backup small forward, et cetera, Tibbs might want to go to a 10-man rotation, that sort of rationale. If that's the case, then I would say Tyler Kolek over Campaign at this moment, though I would not be surprised if Campaign, wins the job in training camp or something. If Kolek doesn't quite look like he's ready to, step his game up to an NBA level. I mean, Campaign is a legitimate NBA 3-point scorer, and Tyler Kolek had a decent summer league, but really shot pretty poorly. Did really good with the running the offense part and the assists, and was surprisingly decent at rebounding and all that kind of stuff. But he's not NBA tested yet, so maybe Tibbs goes with Campaign to back up Jalen Brunson as like the true backup point guard, quote unquote. And I think that Campaign can, he's not going to be able to get inside at will like Brunson does, or certainly do half the things that Brunson does. But I do think that he can shoot the three. He can bring the ball down. He prior to last year has shown, he showed like more on the Suns where he could get inside, and he went to the rim a little more with the Suns, and had a really high assist percentage there, almost like 30%. So maybe he's the guy that gets trusted initially out of the gate. Either way, I think it's pretty unlikely that anyone other than Deuce ends up getting too many minutes. I think it's more than likely that Tibbs probably sticks with a 9-man rotation, but that's actually what the next question wants me to get into. So Why don't I just take a quick moment and then come back and I'll answer a question about the rotation and what I think about where things are going with that going into this coming season. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel. And I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And when the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. I was looking through the odds and you got to love the Mets right now. They're playing pretty good, playing like one of the best teams in baseball at the moment, rocking the cap today. -1.5 against the Braves tonight with Shenga on the mound. I kind of like the Mets with that. They're a plus 146 at the -1.5 line. So why not give it a shot? I also kind of dig the over 7.5 runs. Call that one just a hunch. I don't know what's making me think that. I'm no expert, so maybe don't take my word for it. But if you want to go vibes only and want to go with Alex vibes, go for that. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, and I'm back in. Continue talking through your mailbag questions here. And I just took a smattering today. I want to take it easy because I want to save a bunch for when Gavin's back. Hopefully, he's starting to feel better. And by next week, we'll be able to get on together and get through some shows and answer some more questions. But of course, if you have more questions for us, the polls are never closed in this regard. You can go ahead and ask us questions anytime you want, and we'll gladly just do that the whole rest of the summer and up until the Knicks start playing again, because I think it's about to be some doldrums outside of maybe little fireworks first week of August when Julius Randle becomes extension eligible. I think we're in for a pretty slow month and change. So definitely any questions you guys have anytime, feel free to ask us. We love hearing from what you want us to talk about. So whether it's on Twitter or whether it's in our YouTube comments, YouTube community page, whatever, hit us up and we'd love to hear from you. But first, we have some questions right now. So I'll answer this one from the Knicks Beat at the Knicks Beat on Twitter, who wants to know, will Tibbs run a 9-man rotation or stick to 8 for the regular season? I don't see any world where it's any less than 9. And in fact, rather than 8, I think that there's a better chance of moving out to 10. I just think, like, if you're just looking at it, you've got your starting lineup, obviously. And, this is all, again, like sort of based on fully healthy, obviously. You want to plan for best case scenario. So, best case scenario, everybody's healthy. You've got Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson starting at the moment. And then presumably to back them up, you have, I'll say in order of probable minutes load, Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart kind of tied at the top there is like your co-sixth man, because I think they'll both get, mid to high 20s in minutes. And then you've got Deuce McBride, and then you've got, actually, if I'm doing it strictly in order of who's most likely to get minutes, you've got either Precious Achua or whoever ends up being the backup center. And then I would say, unfortunately, Deuce McBride, who is a really great player, but has a pretty tough path to getting decent minutes this coming season. So already that's 9 players right there. I just think it's, I don't think that you cut Deuce from the rotation. Like, he would have to be the guy that you say, okay, that's the guy that's not going to be in the rotation anymore. I mean, if you want to have the is Deuce a point guard debate, like, you take him out of the equation. Well, now you for sure don't have a person out there to be the backup point guard. There's Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart can only go so far. So then are you relying on just keeping Jalen Brunson out there for longer? Are you really leaning into the Julius Randle with shooters thing? Like, do you want to have Julius out there with DiVincenzo, Hart, and then keep Anunoby out there or something for a little bit? But then it's like, that would start leading back into the lately false allegations of Tibbs being oppressive with his minute loads and everything else. And I think he's kind of moved on from that point of his career. I mean, that I'll stress it again, the Knicks did not have a single player in the top 10 minutes per game last season. And in fact, I think Jalen Brunson was the only one that was even top 15. Without looking the number up, I think he was number 12 in minutes per game in the NBA last year. Julius Randle was not near the top of that list. Josh Hart, even for how much he played towards the end of the season, did not end up near the top of that list at all. Dante DiVincenzo did not either. I mean, it's just, I think that the whole idea of Tibbs runs his guys into the ground during the regular season, maybe that was true initially, like first year or two with the Knicks when, he really had to rely on Julius Randle, and Julius Randle was like the number one minutes man in the league. But now at this stage, they have so much depth and everything else. And I think Tibbs realizes that, and he's willing to, you know, play guys a reasonable amount of minutes and stuff. So, I'm not too worried about a potential 8-man rotation. That just does not seem realistic to me. 9-man, I still think is the most realistic. 10-man is what I could see if there was going to be a change. And it would involve probably either campaign or Tyler Kolek. As long as Tibbs can stay away from his worst tendencies, and I talked about this a little bit in the previous episode where I was talking about Tibbs's extension and what he can still improve upon and stuff. I do think it would actually be smart for the Knicks to go to a 10-man rotation this year, whether that just means Tyler Kolek or campaign comes in for 5 minutes per game, whatever, just to offset everybody a little bit, or whether it means, 6-7 minutes a game, and then you have Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart getting less minutes than you maybe would expect. Whatever it takes, as long as the Knicks are still winning games and stuff and can find a winning formula with a 10-man rotation, I think they should do it because it's going to keep everybody's legs fresher. It gives other players, more reps during the season to help keep them ready for if they are needed because of injuries or something during the postseason or during a regular season game, whatever the case. I think a 10-man rotation would make a lot of sense this coming year. And, whether Tibbs does it again, who knows? I mean, that one of the hallmark things of the last couple of years for him has been the discovery of that 9-man rotation. Like, he was very proud of that clearly, and, wanted to stick with it going into this past season, after discovering it the season before, and didn't really deviate from that even when, the Knicks were more flush with depth, sort of post injuries and stuff. It was like, he was like, "Nah, let's keep the ship a little tight. You know, let's keep it at 9-man, as much as we can and not deviate from that." So I think that's probably the direction he goes. But if he's going to go another direction, I think that he should go with a 10-man rotation rather than an 8-man. You don't want to leave a player that clearly can play in a Deuce McBride on the bench, not playing at all. I just don't think that's conducive to winning or conducive to good relationships with your players. So, I think that you got to find a way to play him his minutes per game and make sure that he's all set. So I got one more question to get into here, which is asking one more time about the summer league. So I'm gonna get into some final takes, a nice little simplified version of what I thought about the summer league. So I'm gonna get into that in just a second to close out the show. But first, I got to let you all know about our friends over at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So go get some Mets tickets. Again, I'll pump them up second time on the show. They're a real hot team right now. Just swept the Yankees, just beat the Braves in their first game. And maybe we'll beat the Braves in another game. Who knows? But let's go Mets, baby. Love the Mets. They're great. So check out on Gametime last minute deals. You could save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You get flash deals. You could save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, or zone deals where you save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose your seat for you. So there's all kinds of ways to get you in to see those amazing Mets up close and personal as soon as possible. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, and I'm back in. Take one more question on today's show. A little short, sweet show today. It's a long off season. I got to stretch this content as much as I can. So I'm going to take one more question from our buddy Jordan Bub at Bub Jordan on Twitter. Jordan wants to know, out of the Knicks summer league roster, who impressed the most, who impressed the least, who showed encouraging signs and who showed discouraging signs. So interesting question here. Sort of, I feel like similar things asked twice, but I'll try to delineate between who impressed most and impressed least, and who was the most encouraging and least encouraged, or most discouraging. So first, who impressed the most? I still kind of lean Rokas Jokovitis. Or no, I don't think that's fair. I'm gonna say Dmitro Skapintsev, because I came in with somewhat high expectations for Rokas to begin with, based off what he's accomplished in Europe and everything. Skapintsev, I came up with no expectations. And if you, again, I've said this like 5 times, it's gonna sound like I'm crapping on the guy at this point, but it's really just to show how great he was in summer league. But like, if you look at his G League stats the last couple of years with the Westchester Knicks, they're not good. They're not pretty at all. Like, it's not painting a good picture. His field goal percentage is terrible for a center. His rebounding numbers, rebounding percentages were not great. So there was just not a lot to get excited about with him, other than, just, I guess, a classic center height and build and everything. But the summer league, I mean, I thought that he legitimately showed like dark horse third Knicks center, you know, uh, I guess potential. Even if it's a little bit weird, because he's like 26 years old to be talking about how much potential he has or whatever. It's like that's as old as like Isaiah Hartenstein, who just signed for damn near $30 million to leave the Knicks. So who seems like he's sort of reached his maybe apex form, for the sake of the Knicks, having lost him. I kind of hope that he's peaked at this point. But it's a little interesting to say that Skapintsev showed, promise or whatever. But uh, I think that, if he can keep up what he did in summer league and translate it to the NBA level, he might be a viable third center for the Knicks or for some other team. So I would say that he impressed me the most, just because, again, came totally out of left field. I think being impressed, has to kind of do first off with, were you expecting it or not? And I wasn't really expecting much out of Skapintsev, if anything, because I barely knew who the dude was prior to summer league, and he came out impressing me pretty good. So who impressed the least? Unfortunately, kind of a home run, right down right down Broadway here. Easy home run on this one. Unfortunately, the guy who impressed the least was Paco Mdadier. He's raw. He's got a lot to work on. He's got to adjust to the NBA game. He specifically mentioned it himself. His shooting percentage were abysmal. Whatever he ended up shooting from the field, like 30% and like 10% from the 3-point line, just not fantastic. You don't love to see that. But also, he clearly was trying to adjust to the speed of the NBA game. He's trying to adjust to the length of the NBA 3-pointer. I think that he was, a lot of his shots looked like they were like laser beam dead on, but then would just fall like a foot short, I think, especially above the break on threes, because he's just used to shooting it like a foot and a half less. So there's a lot of air balls that looked like they would have gone in if he was shooting a European three. Unfortunately, he was shooting an NBA three, which is why they didn't go in. But, he has some other stuff to work through. He doesn't protect the ball well enough. There's a lot of times where he was kind of being given the opportunity to ISO and try to get inside and just got stripped, and or dribbled it off his foot or whatever. It seems like he kind of has to get more comfortable with his handle, and just get more comfortable with his game in general. There's a lot that he's still got to work on. So definitely the least impressive person in summer league. But that's not to say that I don't still believe that he could be good. It's just in the scope of those 5 games, he was the least impressive to me. Who showed encouraging signs? That's a good opportunity to say. It was, Pac Home did show some encouraging signs. So, I'll give him props. Like, I love the way he moves. I love the way that he moves with or without the basketball. I think he's got a certain smoothness to his game. You could see like the jumper form doesn't look bad either. It's just he's got to adjust where he shoots it. So, he had a couple games they tried to kind of simplify his role and just have him make cuts and stuff like that. Did good there, did good on defense. So, as far as encouraging signs go, I think that Pacom takes that one home too. Although, if I'm going to give someone else credit for encouraging signs, I would say Hook Porty. I think that he, well, all right, he sort of qualifies for both encouraging signs and discouraging signs. I think the encouraging signs were like his offense looks really good, his touch looks nice and soft, his passing is better than I expected. But the discouraging signs, his defense it was not that good. I did not totally love his defense, or his rim protecting ability, or the ability to just shade out to guys on the 3-point line, whatever. So I think he sort of gets a little bit of both. Um, Tyler Kolek, I'll turn into two sides of the coin too. Like, encouraging signs, the passing is legit. He has a legit NBA skill that he can bank on today and, start trying to build a career out of. The discouraging signs, he, definitely was a little too deferential, didn't look to really look to lead through getting his teammates involved, but not so much getting himself involved, which is a key part of point guarding in the modern NBA, at least in my opinion, is being able to get your own shot, feeling comfortable in that. So that was a little discouraging, but also, in the big moments, he made some big shots. So that's encouraging. And then Rokas Jokovitis, like, I think mostly just showed almost all encouraging signs to me. So it's really disappointing to see that he's sticking in Europe. He's playing for I believe it was Maccabi Tel Aviv in the Israeli league. So he signed a contract over there. Granted, if the Knicks really decide that they want to bring him over, I'm sure that they could void that contract or immediately buy him out of it, or buy the club out of it, or whatever, and bring him to the Knicks this season. But it seems like he's probably not making it over. But I just thought he showed pretty much nothing but encouraging signs. Maybe the discouraging could be he turned the ball over a little too much, but encouraging, like, the passing was great. It seemed like he was just kind of screwing around trying to mess with some different types of passes, which led to some of those turnovers. And then the scoring, I think, was really good too, especially towards the end. He was shooting threes with a lot of comfort, hitting those pull-up twos, automatic. So he showed, I would say, a lot of encouraging signs in the summer league. And I wish that there was a way for the Knicks to bring him over right now. It just kind of seems like it's not going to happen. I think the fact that he signed over in Europe again kind of underlines the fact that the Knicks probably told him, yeah, we're probably not bringing you over this year. So go find somewhere to play overseas again, and maybe we'll bring you over next year. I hope that does come to fruition at some point, but I get the feeling it'll probably be after the Knicks make some other form of trade and, find themselves needing some extra depth at the point guard spot. So it's probably going to take a little bit for that. But that's all I got for today. So I'll be back tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, not tomorrow, next week. We're going to come back next week. This is the last episode for this week. So we'll be back next week. Gavin and I, hopefully back together, answering more of your mailbag questions. Again, if you had mailbag questions and you wanted to ask them, even if you've already asked one, like, feel free, drop it to us on Twitter under our tweet or whatever, or just tweet at us at Locked On Knicks, or comment under this video on YouTube, or comment under the community note that I put out the other day asking for mailbag questions. We love hearing from you guys and hearing what you want to hear us talk about. So definitely drop those notes so that we know what you want to hear. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.